Way downtown.
What's up, NBA fans? Dom2K on the mic, and before I get to giving my thoughts on a season that's already turned out a lot crazier and more interesting than anybody really anticipated, I just wanted to point you in the direction of my 2K channel where I'm posting a lot of 2K content. Basically, while I'm wrapping up this last semester, which only has about a month left, it's a lot easier for me to consistently post on that channel because a lot of the content you see, I previously made it and I'm just kind of rolling it out on a good schedule. So for this last month that I'm in school, if you notice it's been about 4 or 5 days since I had a video on this channel, you can just go check that one and be guaranteed that there'll be a new video there. Link is in the comment section and in the description and on the screen, so I recommend you check it out. So now let's get right into talking about how surprising this season has been. Coming into it, pretty much everybody thought it was going to be another boring season because we all know the Warriors got better. The Cavaliers, in theory over the summer they had gotten better, and we just kind of expected that no matter what happened over the summer with the other teams, basically they were all just crabs in a bucket. They were going to be playing each other, and whether the games were good or not, we all knew the Warriors and Cavs were way more dominant than everyone else at the end. And although we're only 2 weeks into the season, it's going nothing like anybody would have expected. If you would have asked anyone 2 weeks ago, they would not have told you that the Cavaliers were going to be under 500 at any point in this season. And most people would have said by this point the Golden State Warriors would have only lost maybe one game at best. But the surprises we're getting right now don't stop at the Warriors and Cavaliers having slow starts to the season. There's a lot of teams and players right now that nobody expected anything from, and they're performing really well. So although it's only 2 weeks into the season and so much could change before the playoffs, I am going to be pointing these guys out as surprises so far into the season. So the first guy I want to give some credit to is actually a player I was defending about a month or two ago on this channel, and that's Dwight Howard. This guy has been getting treated unfairly for years now, and it sucks because now that he's playing good for the Hornets, nobody's even talking about it. About a week and a half ago, Dwight posted a 20 and 15 game, and I didn't even see a video the next morning about it on the NBA channel. He had another night with 19 points and 16 rebounds, a night with 15 points and 19 rebounds. He's posting these games consistently, and his averages right now are 14 points, 15 rebounds, 2 blocks, and he's shooting 55%. The Hornets are currently 4-3, and I would assume that their fans are pretty happy that they have Dwight instead of Roy Hibbert this season. But his play right now just goes back to the argument I was making when I was saying that he's a lock for the Hall of Fame. I think this is something that people should generally know, and I shouldn't have had to make a case for it anyways, but I did. And one of the things that I was saying is what people are calling a fall off in Dwight Howard's career is still a lot of centers' best numbers. So I think that if it was a lot of other centers in the NBA right now who are averaging 14 points, 15 rebounds with the defense, they'd be getting a lot more recognition than Dwight Howard actually is. But because most of us remember what Dwight Howard was back when he was an MVP candidate, and because Kobe Bryant called him soft, he's pretty much ridden off to the point where he's playing well right now and absolutely nobody's talking about it. Right now I understand it's only a 7-game sample, so his numbers probably should go down, but I just want to put it out there that if he does keep his rebounding numbers to around 13 or 14 for the entire year, those would be the most rebounds he's averaged since the season when he left Orlando in 2012. So if you're not really paying any attention to Dwight, you should be, because he's putting up some good games. So next I'm talking about my home team, because I do live in Orlando, Florida, and things are really weird here right now. The Magic haven't been good since Dwight Howard left in 2012, and they haven't even been decent since Dwight Howard left. And so I was wearing a Magic hat the other day, and somebody pointed at it and they're like, yeah, go Magic, and that was a weird feeling because nobody's acknowledged that hat that I've worn for like a year now. And no, that's not me being a bandwagon, because I have about 10 team hats that I wear. It's just something that I do. Anyways, I'm just going in order of what I wrote down, and the Magic probably should have went last because that's the biggest surprise on this list to me. If you go back to my prediction video that I made about 2 weeks ago, you'll notice that I didn't even call the Magic by name, so that's not a good look because they've turned out to be a halfway decent team so far. Every year that I talk about the NBA with fans, or in these last 2 years when I've made videos, I've never once had to mention the Magic because we're just so used to them being bad down here. We're used to bad GM decisions, and basically I think a lot of us felt like they were just going to be bad for like the next decade. They've made so many bad choices in the past that I think I just completely overlooked the one good choice they made by signing Simmons from the Spurs this summer. So now that Simmons isn't playing a role for the Spurs and he's not playing with a guy like Kawhi and LaMarcus Aldridge, his numbers have shot up to 17 points, he's shooting 53% from the field, and the Magic couldn't have picked a better time to get a guy like Simmons because Aaron Gordon right now, he's coming into his own as well. He's averaging 21 points, 9 rebounds, and he's really worked on his perimeter shot. So far in the season, he's made 13 3-pointers out of the 22 that he's taken. And that's a real bright spot because we know that if you're a power forward these days, you want to know how to shoot the ball. But check out what he's done so far far in his career. In his first season, he only made 13 3-pointers total. In his second season, he made 42. His third season, he made 77. So it's been going up every year, and so far he's averaging 2.6 3-pointers a game. So if that were to continue throughout the rest of the season, through 82 games, he would be on track to make about 200 threes this season. Now that's probably not going to happen because, again, really small sample size, but I think we can see that it's going to improve, and it has been improving. He just posted a career high the other day with about 40 or 41 points against the Nets. And I'm really excited to see this guy develop because you really can't go wrong with an athletic stretch four who can also play in the post. So I'm done talking about the Magic, I'm going straight into the Knicks now, and as a team they surprised me. Porzingis isn't really surprising me other than the fact that he's really good right now, because at the time of this recording he's only scored under 30 points one time this season, and that's really impressive. I wish I would have talked about it more because when Carmelo Anthony got traded, so much of my focus was talking about OKC and what they were going to do, but I never really mentioned, at least I don't think I mentioned that, of course this would unleash Porzingis. And right now he's averaging 29 points, 8 rebounds, and 2 blocks, and that was to be expected. His stats were gonna go up, but the big surprise here is that he's got the Knicks at a 500 record, which I think a lot of us thought that the only time they were gonna be 500 was when they were 0-0. If he just kept up what he was doing right now and somehow got the Knicks to the playoffs, he would have a strong MVP case. And no disrespect to Carmelo, but this is what I was saying when I was so anxious for him to get traded. Not only did I want him to go somewhere and actually compete for a championship, but I wanted to see the Knicks rebuild around Porzingis because it just made very little sense to have a super bad team with an aging star and one that could clearly be the best player in the league one day, or at least be close to it. So speaking of trades, we all remember when Paul George got traded to the Thunder, and we all just asked the question, how? How did they trade Oladipo and Sabonis to get Paul George? And at that point, many of us just thought the Pacers didn't care at all. We thought they just wanted to tank as hard as they possibly could to get a high draft pick one day and go on from there. And instead, they ended up housing one of the biggest surprises to this point in the season. Oladipo right now is averaging 26 points on 53% field goal shooting, and I really want to talk about this for a second because I may or may not be way too passionate about this topic. So every time you have these teams that don't play that well or they're just flat out bad, sometimes they have a star player and that star player puts up crazy numbers. Think Chris Bosh on the Toronto Raptors and Kevin Love on the Wolves. And the thing that irritates me is people discredit these guys' numbers and just saying, oh, they were a first option, so that's the only reason the numbers look like that, and when they got to a good team they couldn't perform that same way. Well, for one, I've probably mentioned 1,000 times on the channel already what happens to players' numbers when they join big threes, because pretty much all of them go down. But the other reason I think that logic is flawed is because players don't just start averaging in the high 20s with efficient field goal percentage just because they're the only player there, they just get the ball the most. So if you're averaging like 26 points just because you're taking the most shots and you're not really that good, to me that would look like 26 points and more like 42-43% field goal percentage. Basically my point is I like how Oladipo is shining right now, and I hate the discreditors out there who try to do this to every player whose numbers shoot up when they get put in a role like this. Because I look at a team like the Jazz and say, okay, Gordon Hayward left them and right now nobody's averaging over 20 points, and I believe he was averaging like 22 for them last season. So if there's this theory that every time a star player leaves a team, whoever gets the first option role is gonna replace his production, then who's averaging 20 or 22 points for the Jazz right now? And I'm not trying to put the Jazz down because they actually still look like a decent team without Gordon Hayward. I'm just using that as an example to say, yo, when there's somebody averaging 26, 28 points a game like Chris Bosh and Kevin Love were back in the day, and they're doing it efficiently, that's talent. That's just not by default. And right now, Oladipo is looking really talented, so I can't wait to see how far he takes it this season. So now that I'm done with that little mini rant, I want to get off that topic and switch to the Boston Celtics and say they are definitely surprising me without Gordon Hayward. I'm pretty sure most of you saw the video I made the morning after Gordon Hayward had that injury, and you could just kind of hear how devastated I was, and I was saying that the Celtics are pretty much just going to be another team without him for this season, but I was watching for Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum's development, and neither one has really disappointed me so far. The thing with young guys is that you just never know how fast or slow they're going to come along, and right now, especially for Jason Tatum, he's already averaging 14 points and 7 rebounds. He looks really well composed out there for a rookie, and then you got Jaylen Brown who's averaging 15 points and 6 rebounds. Only thing with him is he could be a little bit more efficient, but that's going to come with time. Either way, it's really good to have them where they are, because I would say that they're kind of making up for the production that Gordon Hayward would have been giving us, and it's like I said in that video, it was the silver lining, because there's never really an upside to losing your second best player. But because of Danny Ainge, the Celtics just have a really unique position where not only were they in position to maybe contend, but they also had a lot of young guys who needed development too, and typically you don't see that. For Kyrie Irving, I said I was going to be watching out for his leadership, and I don't think his numbers accurately reflect what I like about his game right now. He's averaging a few less points than he was last year on Cleveland, and he's averaging about the same amount of assists with 6. But I really like some of these passes I'm seeing from him because not only is he making plays, but the Celtics are winning right now. And this is with him being the best player on the team, which is so important because we know one of the biggest criticisms when he started asking for a trade is that people said, Kyrie, you're just a scorer, and if you go on a team where there's not a guy like LeBron, then you're not going to be able to lead him to wins. And although it's still super early, if this trend continues, I think he's on his way to proving a lot of people wrong. But just so I can make it as a statement, my biggest surprise here is that the young guys are coming along as fast as they have, because that's really important without Gordon Hayward. So my last surprise that I have in this video that I haven't actually mentioned yet is the Detroit Pistons. It's still very early and anything could happen, but if you go back and watch my predictions video, this is the team that I said was going to be fighting with the Sixers for the last playoff spot. And so far it doesn't mean much that they're at the top of the Eastern Conference because there's only been 7 games, but the basketball they've been playing has looked pretty good. Avery Bradley was an extremely solid pickup, and Tobias Harris is really emerging, and that's good because when Tobias Harris was in Orlando, I thought he was going to be the next guy, like the next star for the Magic, and I was kind of surprised when they traded him, but I think they did it so they could give Aaron Gordon some space. So now he's on the Pistons, and right now he's putting up like 20 points a game. So he's been one of those really pleasant surprises. But the other thing is the Pistons are just playing really well-rounded basketball right now. So far you've got 4 guys who are averaging over double digits, and Drummond is playing really good basketball as he's averaging a double-double. Then you have 3 guys after them that have 8 points a game, and 3 guys after them are putting up over 5 points a game. So they're getting production from a lot of guys on that roster right now, and Avery Bradley was kind of a steal for them because they didn't lose a lot to add him to the roster. He's one of the best on-ball defenders in the game, and I think you saw that the other night when he was playing against the Warriors. So I know it's early and a lot of this is subject to change, and a lot of it is probably going to change, but I don't have a reason to lie. 2 weeks ago, you couldn't have paid me to say that Orlando and Detroit were still going to be 2 and 3 in the Eastern Conference by November. Which leads me to finish my conversation that I started earlier about the Cavaliers and Warriors. First off, I'll talk about the Cavaliers. The video was called The Biggest Question the Cavaliers Still Have to Answer, and obviously one of those was defense, because like I talked about all last year, the defense was terrible. This summer they only added 1 defensive player, and as you can see right now, they're still terrible at defense. And guess what? When they get Isaiah Thomas back, they're still going to be terrible at defense. Now, with that being said, in my mind, none of that justifies them losing to the Knicks and losing to the Nets and even the Pelicans. I know the Pelicans have a great duo down low, but they have no perimeter players, and I believe Etuan Moore had 25 points in that game, and I don't know who was guarding Etuan Moore that night, but that's a lot of points for Etuan Moore. So with all that being said, yes, I am sympathetic to the fact that they lost a player as good as Kyrie Irving. Again, that doesn't justify losing to the teams that they lost to, but it obviously does hurt that they traded their first option player on offense for a guy that's not going to be ready till January, and when he gets back, we're going to have to see how he fits with the chemistry, and we're going to have to see if he's even the same player because we don't know what actually happened to his hip or how bad it is. But I'll just say what I think. It is early. We have to remember that this is the Eastern Conference we're talking about, and yes, we've got some pleasant surprises, but just remember that in 2015, we watched LeBron James without Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love. Okay, well, definitely without Kevin Love, but Kyrie Irving, he was in and out in the 2015 playoffs. They still made it to the NBA Finals. This year, yes, the East is a little bit better with a team like the Celtics, even without Gordon Hayward. But what I think is that if they get to the playoffs, and even if Dwayne Wade is slowed down by that point because of injuries, or Derrick Rose isn't there at all because of injuries, as long as this team has guys like LeBron James, Kevin Love, Isaiah Thomas, who should be back by that point, Jay Crowder, as long as they have most of what they're supposed to have, they should still make the NBA Finals in the East. And this is why I've been so for conferences being eliminated, because we can clearly see that Cleveland's defense is super duper trash. They'll get destroyed by Golden State in the finals as long as their defense stays trash. But because they play in this Eastern Conference, they still should make the NBA Finals even with all the flaws they have. Now, that's what should happen, but you know, with this season and things that should happen, like should the Detroit Pistons and the Magic be at the top of the East in November? Probably not. And I'm all open to this because I don't want to see Cavaliers and Warriors part 4, so if I'm wrong, I'll be happily wrong because I want to see anybody but them there, really. I just want something different. And I left myself about a minute to discuss the Golden State Warriors and their slow start because that's all I really need. Look, the Clippers were on a roll, they were playing great basketball, great defense. I believe they started 5-1, and just to remind everybody that nobody can actually touch them, the Warriors rolled in there and scored 141 points behind Steph Curry having 31 points in 3 quarters. Look, a lot of people accuse me of being a Warriors bandwagon and they say all these things about being a Warriors fan, and what it actually is that I'm just a realist and I don't let my emotions bias what I'm watching in the NBA. I just watch what's going on and I apply common sense to it. And right now, I would say the Warriors just got a little bit of championship hangover. It's happened to plenty of teams. They're not the first or the last, but if you've been watching them this season, there's a couple of games so far where they just won off of talent. I believe they beat the Wizards and the Raptors off talent, and they were trailing them for a long time, and they came back and won both of those games just because they're far more talented than those teams. Sadly, they're still more talented than every team in the NBA right now. So although I would love to see another NBA Finals, I think at least from the West side, I'm still 100% sure that without injuries, Golden State's still coming out of there. It should tell you a lot that the other day Steve Kerr said their team forgot 5 plays out of the timeout and they still ended up winning that game just because of the talent. So while they may not win 70 games like I predicted this season, because clearly they are off to a slow start and they're a little bit sloppy, they're still more dominant than every team in the NBA. They're still way better than every team in the NBA, and yeah, they should still be the champions by the time this is all over. But yeah, I am surprised that they came out with championship hangover and that they're just not absolutely dominating everybody, because that's what I was expecting. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys today. Those are my biggest surprises for this second week in the NBA season, and to be honest, I hope these surprises keep going. I hope the Cavaliers and Warriors keep struggling. I don't think that's really going to happen, but I would hope so. And yeah, I hope the bad teams keep doing good, because the NBA seasons are always more entertaining when it's like this. So let me know in the comment section what surprised you so far. Let me know if you agreed or disagreed with what I said. Hit the like button, comment, and sub if you enjoyed. Make sure to sub to my second channel where I'm doing a lot of 2K content, and hit the bell next to my name if you want notifications on future videos. I'm Dom2K, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Thanks for watching.